Here I am sketching. I'm using my little watercolour sketchbook and a drawing pen here. I have details about the materials I'm using in the description below. I'm just sketching away there. Sometimes it's great if you can to take a photograph, and if you get your sketchbook out, you can be quite discreet about it if you're a bit embarrassed about drawing out in public. But it's such fun. I'm just giving a little impression here. You don't have to spend ages. Just a few scribbly lines to get this lighthouse in here and the path leading up there and the distance, etc. It was tricky for me to paint here in watercolour, so I'm going to take it back to the studio to finish it off. So here's the photograph that I took of the lighthouse as well, if you want to join in and sketch along. So I thought it was really quite a nice view. A link for this photograph and a full list of materials that I use in this tutorial can be found in the description below. So shall we get started? I usually use my Winsor & Newton field box. Here it is, I've had it for a while, and I'll put a link in the description below where I do a little review of this field box. But you could just use a small watercolour box as well. It comes with a lid but also acts as a water pot as well. So it's quite compact and very robust. And you can buy the student version of this as well with the Cotman watercolours or artist's colours. But I tend to actually squeeze in my own colours as well. So maybe you could save yourself some money there. This is a little water container that acts as a palette as well, so you can store your water in there, squeeze it out into your little water pot there, and you're good to go. It's so compact and it's great if you're out sketching as well. I couldn't balance it on the castle walls there, so I decided to do it in the studio. Plus you get a better view of what I'm doing here. I'm using my size 6 brush, adding some cerulean and painting wet on dry here, as you can see. I'll let you into a secret for pen and wash and how you can be more successful with it. Less is truly more. Let the pen sing out as well. You only have to put and tickle a little bit of paint on. I would suggest only working in 2 layers. The first layer just to sort of put in all the local colour that you can see. Keep it simple. Leave lots of white of the paper. Don't try to fill in everything. And as I get to the second stage, I'll let you know a couple more really handy tips if you like pen and wash. So what I'm doing here is just painting a little bit of shadow on the lighthouse using a little bit of blue and brown. And I'm actually going to paint in the water here using the side of my brush here. I've got a little bit of Prussian blue in there with a touch of ultramarine. You can see I'm leaving some white gaps as well. I'm still using my size 6 brush, and I'm working wet on dry. I've just added a little bit of yellow to that there, a little bit of Quinacridone gold, touch of the Prussian blue, and I'm going to paint the trees in the distance there using the tip of my brush, working wet on dry. This area of the sky just above isn't wet, so the trees are in no danger of bleeding into the sky there. I've just added a little bit more blue to there. I'm just using the tip of the brush and just dropping and making marks, just small marks to give a little bit of detailed information in the distant trees there. Rinsing off my brush now, getting a little bit more of this yummy Quinacridone gold and just painting a little bit there. It looks like some sandy shore just below the trees there. You don't have to spell it out though, it's just to create an impression. Keep everything loose, try to keep everything really simple, because obviously this is way off in the distance. I'm using some of that Quinacridone gold with a little bit of cerulean blue, a touch of Prussian blue as well, and just painting wet on dry with my size 6 brush, and just sort of painting once an area rather than going back and forth all the time. This way you really keep that watercolour fresh and vibrant, using a little bit of Quinacridone gold on the path as well. And I've just got a pinch of, well actually it's a little bit more than a pinch of burnt sienna there. Mix that with the green, which is quite a nice colour, and a little bit more of Prussian blue there, quite creamy. And I'm just going to paint some darks there just at the edge of the path to bring that out a little bit there, and on the other side as well. Burnt sienna and Prussian blue make the most amazing dark green. I've just painted that in there, damp into damp. Rinsing off my brush now, I'm just going to get a little bit more of the cerulean with a little bit of yellow, so it's a really lovely light green. And I'm just going to paint, there was a sort of green painting mark just below here on this little attachment to the lighthouse here. So I'm just painting that in there, adding a little bit more of the dark green now, and just painting, there's some bushes here just to the left of the lighthouse. Wet on dry with my size 6 brush. It's time to let your painting dry. So the painting is dried. This is a really good tip here. Work back in with your pen again. Make sure that paint is dry, otherwise it can spoil your pen and it stops it from working. I'm putting shadow in, cross-hatching with this drawing fine liner pen, which is waterproof. It's black ink. It's got quite a fine nib. I'm just putting instead of painting, I'm just putting the details in with the pen. So it's a pen and wash, and I'm just putting a little bit more detail on the lighthouse. I didn't really get it too well when I was at the castle, so I'm just adding a little bit more here, and I can see a little bit more with the photograph. You can get that extra bit of detail in the star of my show, which is the lighthouse. So I don't have to wait for anything to dry. I've just mixed up a little bit of ultramarine with a bit of burnt sienna, and I'm painting in some shadow at the top there, adding a little bit of Prussian blue and violet as well, just to build up some shadow colours here. Remember, less is more. I don't want to put too much information here. And that's another really good tip with pen and wash in this next stage. Really try to keep your painting to a minimum, so let that pen shine. So I'm just putting a little bit of cast shadow here, using a bit of violet and blue. You could use a little bit of ultramarine and the burnt sienna as well, just painting that in, wet on dry with my size 6 brush, just to kind of finish off the painting, putting a little bit on the edge of the path as well to lead your eye through. And I thought it would be quite nice to finish off with a little spatter. It stops me from fiddling, and it creates a little bit of texture in the foreground. I'm just daubing off a few. There was a little bit OTT with the spatter. Here's a close-up of the little sketch painting here. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that it inspires you to maybe go out and do some sketching outside. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below.